listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
So we're going to pretend that Stephanie tried to start the podcast fully with the microphone in front of her and the headphones on. She did not stand there or sit there and be like, I'm ready, let's record. Well,
I was comfortable.
You're very comfortable.
I was comfortable.
It
Now
usually
I need to,
helps when you're doing a
clean.
podcast if you talk into the microphone.
I realized it.
It actually helps if the microphone's actually like in position
It
in front of
is.
you and that you are like...
Are you meaning now or earlier? Are you like, because it's still kind of off? Or
No, earlier.
Are you like earlier because I forgot to like even bring it in front of me whatsoever?
No, just earlier. We're here.
Do you remember when you used to do it for me?
The
You'd
microphone.
come over and set it up.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Why do you ask? Why? They want to know.
Why do they want to know? Because I was so anal that I couldn't.
Because you were so sweet.
No, I was so anal.
It was totally anal.
Yeah,
I was like,
totally OCD.
you would get it and I would have to make sure that I could like.
Do you remember how like, don't touch the microphone.
Do I remember?
Don't bump the microphone. Anything, any slight movement whatsoever. And I would have a panic attack because, our audio just got fucked up for 3 seconds.
You know what is really cool?
Huh.
Hold on, so I can get my glasses
Now
back
I
on.
can't do an episode and not touch the fucking mic.
What is really cool is how much you cared about it and how much attention to detail you gave it.
You're so sweet.
I am so sweet.
Yeah. No, I was a definite asshole at times.
You were, it was important to you and you were figuring things out.
Yeah.
So,
Luckily, we figured them out.
yeah.
For the most part. Some of us
I
still.
can't even remember to bring the mic down. That's the first time I forgot that.
Well, you've got a little
I
bit on your
think.
plate today.
I was sitting here like taking notes.
You got a little bit
being
on your plate.
responsible.
Yeah.
I forgot the mic.
I sat like this last episode, or the last
Yeah?
few episodes, I've been sitting comfortably like this. I like it.
I'm going to try.
I feel like we're not getting this much, but then sometimes we can talk to them,
Yeah.
meaning the camera.
Our listening audience?
Yes.
Is that what you
The
call them?
listeners of this podcast.
Listeners of the podcast. Let's see how that works.
So before we get too squirrely, one of the things
Not get comfortable.
we talked
again.
about it on last week's episode.
Did we?
And I want to mention it again this week. And it's all about the Joe Rogan Spotify controversy. I think canceling people should be done. I think we should be done with that.
We should be done canceling
I think we
people?
should be done canceling people.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
Right? If there's somebody that you don't like, don't listen to them
Don't
and
listen
don't
to
follow
them.
them.
Yeah.
And the fear of, the information that they're putting out is so detrimental, you just have to deal with that.
Yeah.
You have to deal with that fear. Think about it. We all sit here, and I can think right now about a bunch of people that I'm like, those people should not be allowed. Like, those people should be in jail.
Right?
Right? People should not be allowed to be walking freely. Well, that's not my choice. That's not my decision. I don't get that right. I have to just deal with the anxiety and fear that it brings me, knowing that those people exist.
Okay.
So if there's people that have a lot of fear and anxiety about Joe Rogan and what he's talking about on his podcast and how a million gazillion people listen to it, unfortunately, you just have to deal with that fear.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, well, we need to get Joe Rogan off the air. Nope. You just don't listen. Period. Right? That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that you think needs to be canceled, take it upon yourself to cancel them from your life. You have that right. You have the opportunity to unfollow. You don't have to listen. You can block them so that you never see their face again on social media. And unless Joe Rogan's your fucking neighbor, right? Or you live in Austin and you see him driving around everywhere, then maybe you got more of a problem than the rest of us. But at the end of the day, you don't have to deal with it. And you're not actually helping people by dealing with it in the way with which they are dealing with it.
Yeah.
The idea that you're going to pull your content from Spotify and that's going to magically fix all these fucking problems, that's a child.
Yeah.
A child says, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to take my toys and I'm going to go home. It's the same thing. Why not say, hey, I don't like the way you're treating me, or I don't like the words that you're saying, and I don't like the way that you're talking about things, because it seems like a lot of people are listening to you. So rather than me taking all of my stuff and leaving, I'm going to double down and show up and like talk to you. Let's figure this out. Because clearly I'm missing something.
Yeah.
100 million people listen to Joe Rogan every week. Clearly some of y'all are missing something, right? The proof is in the pudding. He has been proven by what he's done as a valuable source of information and content, both like inspiring content. There's a lot of people. Joe Rogan brings on David Goggins. He brings on Cameron Haynes. He brings on Jocko Willink. He brings on Jordan Peterson. He brings on Dr. Rhonda Patrick. We love Dr. Rhonda Patrick, right? All of these people that are inspiring, that actually inspire and help change the world. And Joe Rogan has helped magnify those people and their voices so that there has been legitimate like healing and changing that has taken place for people across the world. There's a small chunk, like little known fact, I credit Joe Rogan with a lot of what I am experiencing today. Do you remember how I found Dan Doty?
I do remember how you found Dan Doty.
Dan Doty is an amazing man, and if you guys don't know who he is, he's been on the podcast. I don't remember what episode it was. It was a long time ago. He was.
You've also been on his.
I was on. Well, it was the Everyman podcast a
Oh,
long
okay.
time ago. Anyways, I listened to Dan on Rogan. I was outside mowing the lawn, heard Dan on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about like emotional things, and he was talking about men's work and emotional work, all this different stuff that I was like, what is he talking about? I didn't really understand exactly what it was, but I knew that I needed to listen to it. And then come to find out, he was doing an expedition where he was going to go into Yellowstone, which is like, I think part of me was born in Yellowstone.
Right.
Right. And so because he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and because Joe Rogan's podcast is what it is, I heard Dan Doty, which in turn led me to like change everything about my life. Inspired me to be a better man, a better father, a better partner, a better human, a better person. It didn't fix everything, right? I really wanted it to. Turns out I had a lot of work to do. But that's an example of the catalyst that Joe Rogan can and is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So also because he talks about things at times where he is very crass and insensitive and rude. I'm not sitting here saying he's perfect, because he's not. And he knows he's not. Everybody knows that he's not, right? But at the end of the day, he shows up the best that he can. He admits when he's made mistakes. He tries to make up for those mistakes. He like outright acknowledges them and owns his mistakes. He had somebody on his podcast today or yesterday, I don't know when it was, some dude whose sole mission in life is to get people out of jail that were wrongfully committed, up into including death row inmates. And that's what this guy's life work is. So now this guy's work gets to get highlighted where 100+ million people listen to it. That's a beautiful thing.
That is.
You want to cancel that? You want to get that off the air? He's saving people. He's helping people, right? He's just the talking head. He's just the conduit with which all of this stuff happens. But it's because he's able to show up and hold that space and do that work. So everybody that thinks that we need to get him off of Spotify and cancel Joe Rogan, and he's such a detriment and he's so dangerous and he's all of these different things, just go talk to him, especially if you have a microphone. Like, I'm not saying Brene Brown's name, but you know very well that I'm talking about Brene Brown. Right?
Yes, I do.
So if you've listened to this podcast at any given point over the course of the past 6 years, Brene has come up on the podcast a lot.
Very fondly.
We're very big fans of her
Yeah.
work and what she does. I am not a fan of the way that she has handled this controversy, and I'm not a fan of the way that she has spoken out about it.
Yeah.
I find a lot of issues with what she has said. I'm not going to go into them because that's not necessarily important right now. But I am saying, me, Craig Salazar, on our podcast in our house to this camera that we have set up, that
excuse me,
we need to be done canceling people.
Yeah. Do you know who says that quote? Like if they're burning books at your school, then as soon as you can, get to the library and check out that book. And that's the information that you need to be reading.
Yeah.
It's something like I can't remember who said that. And I know I'm doing a terrible job at rehashing it, but you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
The information that they are trying to censor is the information that
Needs to be out there. Yeah, agreed. And that's a perfect example of like the big issues that they've had with Rogan lately have been his interviews with doctors that have a completely different narrative in regards to COVID than the fucking retarded asinine narrative. I didn't want to say the R word, but it slipped out.
Though. There,
I'm
I heard
not
it.
perfect. I'm not perfect.
I heard it.
I make mistakes. Yeah, that's the issue that they have. Is that he brought people on that are talking about a different side of the COVID.
Yeah.
It's not a pandemic in my mind. It's a circus. It's this like overblown. It is a pandemic in a sense, but anyways, we don't need to ramble on about COVID. But yeah, that's information that needs to be out.
Oh my goodness.
Part of the reason why you and I are on the supplement regime that we are on every single day is because of Rogan.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's not to say Joe Rogan, do I take some supplements that Joe Rogan takes? Yes. But he takes them because these super smart people tell him to, right?
Yeah.
It's not like he's going to GNC and being like, let's see what I should get today, right? No, he's like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's like a board certified fucking scientist lady who knows what she's talking about, says, you should probably take vitamin D. Done. Right? That's a doctor telling me what to do.
Do you know what I love? A doctor telling you what to do. Do you know what I love is like some of these things I have come up with and we need to be taking. And it's like, but thank God. Okay.
Finish your sentences.
No, you also listen to me now when I say I think we should be taking something. But for a while it was like, and then I got to sit back and be like, oh, you think that's a good idea?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea?
I'm listening to you about the coffee thing.
You're listening to like it's so different now.
It is,
and
way different.
Which is why now when I tease about it, it's like as opposed to like that really hurts my feelings. So
I believe.
You believe
that we should stop canceling people.
That
Period.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything that is cancelable.
I don't feel as strongly.
But should we not allow for mistakes to take place?
We should allow for mistakes.
Are there some mistakes that are unforgivable?
I think so, yes.
And if those mistakes happen, aren't they basically canceling themselves? They're taking care of those. Like, they're taking care of the canceling by their mistake.
Yeah, I don't know.
The mistakes
There's still a lot of people with microphones. It seems like the good ones are the ones that actually get shut down. Right?
The ones that actually are helping. Yeah. I don't think we should cancel anybody anymore, especially over like, I mean, Joe Rogan is a slightly different case because it's a lot of talking involved, right? So we're canceling somebody over words. Mm-hmm. But like, if you're going to start canceling people because of stuff that they say on social media via like a tweet, like now you're canceling somebody for something that they wrote. I don't get that.
I think there's some really shitty things that you can write that
you should be canceled for.
Not allowed to continue writing those. See, you're giving me a conflict here.
I think
you're giving me like, I'm sitting here thinking about like Trump's tweets.
How much of lately I've been talking about this ranting thing when it comes to like the way that social media fucks with us. Yeah. Because they so we've been creating and producing and putting out a lot of content on Instagram. And lately, some of the reels that we create, because we just pull reels from the podcast. Yeah. So you're missing out. They're amazing. But the content that we pull is obviously just these conversations. And you can hear in the last 15 minutes that we say fuck, shit, damn, hell. We swear a ton.
Did we get cunt?
We say cunt sometimes.
Really like the cunt.
Right? Really like the cunt. But all of these words that we say, turns out they're words that everybody says, right?
I thought.
Turns out a lot of people say these words. Turns out social media doesn't like it when you swear.
I know.
And so they've started to bleep those words out in your content.
Do you see how they have to say sex on anything?
Yeah.
Segs.
So it's this whole thing of like we're censoring reality.
Yeah.
But it very much mirrors society. So society does this thing where they're like, sex is bad. Don't have sex. Don't talk about sex. Don't think about sex. Abstain from sex. Sex is only for when you're mature and you're an adult and within the confines of a healthy heterosexual relationship, right?
Marriage.
Anything out of that, don't talk about it. So that's what society says. And then society turns around and just like fucks like crazy and has all the sex and all the porn and all the whipping and all the choking and all the spanking and all the dungeons and all the latex and all the beautiful, wonderful things that exist out there. That's what society does. And then they turn around and say, don't talk about sex. Nope. There's no sex going on over here. What are you talking about? Nothing behind this closed door. We all know that we're fucking. We all know that we swear. We all know that we like sex. We all know that we gravitate towards these things. And the algorithms that they use for social media actually feed us these things, right? So if I'm a perfect example.
I mean, your feed's a lot more sexual than mine.
It's because I like it. So I'm a big fan of shibari rope tying. I think that it's sexy. I think it's interesting. I think it's aesthetically pleasing. I like the visuals of it. I also think that there's much more to it. I think that there's a lot of beauty that lies within that space and that can actually be a really healing thing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff about it that really resonates with me. So that's what I like to look at. One of many things, right? But that's one of the things that I like to look at. If their algorithm wanted to censor that so that I couldn't see those things, it very much could, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a very easy code that they could write into the algorithm so that I just no longer could find those things. Or better yet, they just didn't have those things on their platform. But that's not what they do.
Okay.
They tell you that you can't talk about sex and that you can't say sex and that you can't even spell the fucking word sex. And then they go ahead and they feed it all to you. Because if you like something that is sexual in nature, the very next thing you're going to see in your algorithm is something sexual in nature. And every time you go and search, that's the stuff that's going to come up. So it's this really fucked up dynamic where they are punishing you and shaming you, and then they turn around and feed it to you.
Yeah.
And that's what society has done forever.
Yeah.
So this is just the latest iteration of it, right? Obviously, before social media, it was religion, right? It's the same thing where these things aren't approved. What's not approved? Well, first off, swearing. What the fuck are you talking about? We can't swear. I can't swear on Instagram? Is it a bunch of fucking 4-year-olds on Instagram? Like, if it's kindergartners, I understand that. If Instagram is an app for kindergartners, please. Somebody let me know. I'll stop swearing. We'll take all the sex out of this podcast, at least for what we post, right? But it's not an app for kindergartners, okay? It's grown-ass fucking adults and children and teenagers and really just society. I've got a big issue with it.
I'm aware.
It's pissing me off.
I can see this.
I'm
feel
creating
that.
all of this content that we're putting out there, right?
Yeah.
And then I go to post it and they don't. Like, if I didn't want the word fuck in the clip, I wouldn't put it in there, right? Don't go ahead and bleep out the word fuck. This isn't Channel 4, like at 7 o'clock, TGI Fridays, Full House, right? It's asinine to think, who is making these decisions? That's what's really frustrating, is it's not an individual or a group of people. It's really the societal thing. Where these companies, these big tech companies that are in charge of these social media platforms, Facebook, obviously. Oh, it's not Facebook anymore. It's Meta. Meta what? I don't know. Metaverse.
That's so stupid.
So they're the ones that are deciding these things, at least for Facebook and Instagram and God knows what else, everything else that they're doing. But they're basing that off of societal norms. So we really need to shift and change those societal norms. And I feel like that's what Joe Rogan is doing. He's taking this concept of free speech and he's putting it to the test. Free speech is fine if there's 15 people listening. If we only have to worry about you and the fucking weirdos in your basement that you're talking to, talk away. We don't care. You can even come out and talk in public. But if you start getting a crowd around you, people start listening, people start regurgitating what you're saying, and if people start actually believing what you're saying and then start acting upon those beliefs, oh, now we got to censor that. Bullshit. Don't fucking listen to it if you don't like it. Go listen to the other side or the other version of whatever it is that you resonate with. The idea that you're going to shut off this one person from talking, that's beyond asinine to me. I don't understand that in the slightest. There's a lot of people I don't like listening to.
Yeah.
You know what I do?
Just turn them off.
Fucking keep scrolling.
I agree.
Keep on fucking scrolling. Unsubscribe, block, don't like listening to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your content in front of my face because you disgust me. Solved. We actually have a system in place for that. You can literally not have to see that person ever again in your social media feed. It turns out you don't have to listen to that podcast. Nobody's force feeding Joe Rogan to anybody.
Yeah.
They just have a problem because a whole bunch of money involved.
Yeah.
Right? Whole bunch of money involved. He's a rich motherfucker because of his podcast. And he's got a lot of sway. And a lot of people want to come on his show strictly because he talks to hundreds of millions of people across the entire world. Right? That's never been the case before.
Right?
You used to be able to talk to thousands of people at once. Hundreds of thousands, millions, 100 million people at one time. When has that ever existed before in history?
Right.
And he talks to people like that for 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes. Every day.
That's crazy.
Right? You can consume like 20 plus hours of Rogan a week. And it's all brand new, fresh stuff.
Who has that time? Like, do you think there's somebody out there that's listened to every episode?
I know there's people that have listened to every episode.
Yeah.
There's people that have listened to every episode, downloaded every episode. Like, there are obviously people that are addicted to it.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like there's not enough time.
If you're addicted to the Energy is Love podcast, you're welcome and thank you. Hit us up. If you want something, we'll give it to you.
How many innuendos are you going to throw in there?
Baby, I'm just talking about like a t-shirt.
Slide into his DMs. Is that what you're saying?
Would you like some swag? We've got some merch in the way. That's all. I'll send you my water bottle.
What if they're like, yes, please, with your DNA on it? They want to clone a Craig. I
Hey.
would say make 2, please.
Let's switch it up because
Okay.
I can obviously rant about this for a while.
Well, maybe you should. Maybe you just need to keep going off about it.
Do you not find it frustrating?
Yes.
Where's your hang up when it comes to free speech? I'll let you take a drink.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. Pause for a moment, folks. Taking a drink break here. Craig will check his phone obsessively because he's
My
addicted to it like all the rest of you.
String. My
Your
tea bag string.
Tea bag string.
Like, I totally stuck that right in my mouth. So I was like trying to pull it out, but not so, like trying to not get caught on camera. So I was like, oh.
What did you just suck right into your mouth? Your tea bag string? Your string of tea bags?
just a string. I'm not even going to say tea bags. Just a string.
So what is your problem with free speech or your hesitation?
I don't have hesitation with free speech.
Because you think there's a part of you that agrees with Brene Brown. That Rogan shouldn't be on the air.
Do you want to just fill in all my parts for me?
I'll fill in some of your parts. Which parts would you like me to fill in?
I think we should just change the subject.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a little hot under the collar.
You are, but like you're ready to fight me.
I know.
It's like, knock it off.
That's what happened last night after I
It
got done reading
is.
Brene's
You were
thing.
like ready to fight me. I'm like,
No.
hey.
We're laying in bed relaxing. It's like 9 o'clock. It's totally time to like start going to bed and falling asleep and cuddling and like maybe we'll watch something silly and fall asleep. Instead, Craig's like, let's talk about Brene Brown's latest fucking post.
You were like, yeah.
I was pretty upset.
You were upset. You're still upset. That's okay. You can be upset. Also, we don't have to fight.
You know what makes me mad?
What's that?
Brooke Hampton,
Okay.
Barefoot 5.
Uh-huh.
She was on this podcast back in the day.
Uh-huh.
Everything that woman posts every single day is about fuck this place, fuck these people, fuck this stuff. freedom of speech. I mean, not everything, but the majority of her content is that.
Okay.
And I myself, looking at her content and kind of observing her over the course of the past year, 2 years, whatever, right? Ever since the lockdown, I start to think she's crazy. I start to think, oh, this woman's gone a little off the deep end, right? And I'm realizing now, as I'm sounding like a crazy man, ranting about freedom of speech and kindergarten apps and Instagram and fuck all of this stuff, that I sound a little crazy. But I'm not. Well, at least not about this. And that narrative of if somebody becomes so passionate about something that they won't let it drop because it's so important to them, then we view them as a little crazy.
Women know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. It's pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing about JP Sears, somebody else who was on the podcast, because he's shifted.
Yeah.
JP, the whole reason we found JP back in the day was all of the spiritual work that he was doing and that place of like that he was coming from with all of his content. Remember he used to have those funny videos where he would like make fun of your third eye chakra and coconut oil and all these funny hippie spiritual things. That was hilarious.
Yes.
He now is like freedom of speech. He's actually the co-founder of some new tech company that basically is creating an online platform that is guaranteed to be free in the sense of censorship. So they will not censor anything. Okay. Period. And it's like, good luck with that, JP. I got no desire to, in my mind, that sounds a little crazy. But I know JP's not crazy.
Isn't that kind of what you were saying though? What you wanted?
What?
Like no censorship? Like,
yeah.
Nobody, so he's doing it,
and
but
I
you
see
think
it
it's
as crazy, right?
Help me understand this.
That's the societal programming.
Okay.
So that's the thing that I was talking about where I see Brookhampton and I agree with what she's saying. And then at some point she crosses over into the space where I start to think she's crazy. But that thing that in my head, that's not my story, basically.
Okay.
Thinking that she's crazy isn't my story. It's the story that society uses to basically make that person fall in line. Because if we tell the not crazy person that they're crazy, they're supposed to be like, oh my God, I'm doing something different than everybody else. I must be crazy. I need to change it so that I fall back in line. And now I can be an accepted part of this culture and this tribe, right? That's why we do it.
Yeah.
And she's not doing that. So then, oh, she must be really crazy. Because nobody would want to be considered crazy or on the outside of everybody else. That's why it's used that way. I'm really okay with being on the outside of everybody else.
Right.
Turns out I'm not really a big fan of what they're doing.
Right.
And the way that they manipulate things and the way that they lie and the way that they talk about things and the way that it's very, very shady. So I'm if you're listening to this thinking that Craig's going to get a little crazy, it turns out I might get a little crazy. I was
going to say, you right.
Right? I might get a little fanatical about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should have the right to say what we want to say. Even if it is wrong. Like even if flat earth is a really good example, right? If I want to start talking about the flat earth and I become a fanatic about the flat earth, about the earth being flat, I should have every right to do that.
Yeah.
And if I want to create a podcast or if I want to create a YouTube channel or if I just want to post about that nonstop, I should be able to do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with what I'm saying, you don't have to follow it. But what about the people that don't know better? Do we care about that at all? We don't really care about that. We only care about that if it's in the service of what we believe to be right. Because there's a lot of people that don't know better. There's a lot of people that aren't educated. There's a lot of people that don't have the awareness about a lot of things. And if they did have that, their life would be better and they would be safer. But we don't care about that, right? What do? We feed everybody high fructose corn syrup, right? And then we tell them that it's good for them. So we don't actually care that people don't have knowledge or information. We're not actually trying to protect people. We're only trying to protect our interests and what we value.
Facts.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if the whole thing was like, well, the misinformation that Joe Rogan spreads on his podcast is detrimental to society because people believe it. You're fucking right, we do. Because the shit that they've been telling us doesn't make any sense. How many times have we been told that masks either are going to save us or aren't really needed? That spectrum from one end to the other has been on a loop since March of 2020. And here we are approaching March of 2022, 2 years later, and they still are playing the same loop. Masks are good. You don't need masks. Better wear masks. And masks aren't really what we thought they were. Put a mask on or else you're not allowed in here. What if I don't put on my mask? Well, then you can still come in here. It's not a big deal. It's so fucking retarded. So that stuff is why I'm okay being on the outside, and also why I like listening to Joe Rogan, because he's not telling us that same shit. And the people that he brings on are like, yeah, that's crazy talk. Obviously, masks aren't protecting you from the fucking coronavirus, right? Obviously. But yet, we're still pretending that they are. I'm done pretending that, right? I used to placate people. I used to put my mask on to make other people feel, and that's the thing that they label it as, like, put your mask on. Even if you don't believe it, just makes other people feel good. And I'm like, oh, I can get on board with that. But now I think we're at a point where it's really detrimental, right? Yeah, so the people that really like to drink sugar straight from a straw, by the way, that's soda, obviously. We know it's not really good for them, but we're just going to go ahead and let them do it. Because it's too uncomfortable to say, oh, did you know that that's killing you? And this is a simple example. I'm not saying drinking soda is going to kill you. You know, if you drink soda nonstop for the rest of your life, you're probably going to die early of obesity and heart disease and all sorts of stuff. But there is so much bullshit. You know, I can think of a bunch of other words, but at this point, it's just bullshit. And it's really frustrating. And it's very confusing. And we're hurting people. Society is hurting itself with this level of confusion. When it would be really simple to say, hey guys, turns out if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. And if you don't, it's no big deal. It's really up to the individual person. And if you feel uncomfortable around people that aren't wearing masks, then sorry, that means that you probably shouldn't go around those people. Well, what if it's at the grocery store? Well, lucky for you, this fucking retarded society of ours has come up with 101 different fucking ways for you to never leave your house. So we got that covered. Somebody can actually bring you your groceries. It's so disappointing and sad. I think you have to now take the topic somewhere else. Otherwise, this will be an hour-long ranting episode of Craig going off on shit.
I know.
That pisses
I'm like,
him
are
off.
you okay? You're very upset.
I'm not okay.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm letting all of my pent-up anxiety and tension come out in this topic.
Yeah.
And in this space. When really...
Is it helping?
Not really.
No.
It's just amping me up more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go on. Like I said,
Well, if it's not helping, it's
we're
just
35 fucking minutes into this episode.
Okay.
Are you tired?
Yeah.
Me too. We actually had a plan for this episode. Do you remember what we were going to talk about?
Yeah. I do.
Over the course of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop talking about it.
Yeah. Maybe you just gotta get some feelings out. I'm going to try to not suck the string back in my mouth. We'll see what
of your
happens.
tea bags, your strings of your tea bags.
Yeah. I'm going to hold it.
It's just really sad because I feel like there could be such a better world.
Yeah.
Like, I believe, Stephanie, you are just going to town.
I'm thirsty. I was trying to not chug it, but also I'm like, I'm really thirsty. I don't know why.
I don't think the world is as bad as it seems, because I think obviously the world is comprised of people.
Okay.
And I think that 99.999% of the people on this planet are good-natured
Yeah.
and sweet, kind people.
That's good.
And I think that's actually why we're still all here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have the ability to obviously destroy everything right now.
Yeah. I
Like,
guess that's true.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like 3 men could decide. And notice I said men. Totally going to be men. 3 men could decide to end all life on this planet right now. And they could do that right now.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't. Because I think the vast majority of people are inherently good.
How close do you think it's been? Think about like how many times do you think it's been like, just to continue with the metaphor, like all 3 with their fingers on their buttons? How many?
I don't think we've ever been to the point where it was total world destruction.
You don't think so?
No, I think we would have made that one. I think we would have made it through. But everybody's really good. But we all have agreed. I guess this is probably some deeper thing here. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this.
Are you feeling silenced? Yeah, that's probably.
Yes, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Very much so, right?
Yeah.
40 years of being silenced.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's okay. We have a culture of people that is really, really good. So it doesn't make sense why this world is kind of as fucked up as it is.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think we all have this inherent belief that everybody's good, right? There's part of us that wants to trust our neighbor. And at the end of the day, like even the person, I think about how many times, like, you know, the person that you didn't trust ends up being the person that comes and helps you.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many times in everybody's life, I think, where you get surprised by the people that show up. You know, you're in a car accident and suddenly strangers are there. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Like, look, somebody's there calling the police. You don't have to do anything. Just stay right where you're at. Do you need a drink of water? You know, complete strangers helping other complete strangers.
Yeah.
I think that is the perfect example of what humans are.
Yeah.
I think that the vast majority of people will help a complete stranger out. Right? And not even with just the simplest thing of holding the door, but like in the real moment of crisis and need, I think everybody would show up to help that person.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I
hope you're right.
Well, we have so many examples of that.
Yeah.
Right?
I see it quite often.
All the time. In the big and in the little ways.
Mm-hmm.
So then why the fuck are we so fucked up? Why is society, if society is that nice and comprised of that many beautiful, wonderful, nice people that are willing to like quite literally give you the shirt off of their back, right? Hey, you don't have a shirt. It's kind of cold. Do you want this one? The vast majority of us would do that. So why the fuck are we such a shitty society? That doesn't, like, literally, I'm asking, what do you think? That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
If we're comprised of such beautiful wonderfulness, then how do we have this fuckery and this complete, like, this is big ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
These are 2 complete opposite sides. What's the deal?
Both sides are filling. One side really isn't empty. It's not all like it's a mix.
Yeah.
You've got some real shit over here that have a lot of beauty in them. And you have a lot of beauty like, this is very binary. This is very like saying this side or that.
Yeah.
But I realize the amount that I'm limiting this conversation, but that's okay. Then you have the side over here is all light and they've got a whole bunch of shit in them. So it just, you could say you're all about balance.
In my mind, I think of it. So I take that concept of like, this thing doesn't make sense, right? We have a society made up of good-natured, sweet, kind people. But we also have all of these really shitty problems and all of this disconnect and all of this struggle and all of this fight and all of this internal battle between sides and like, you know.
It's money.
Well, those are all surface things.
You think money's a surface thing?
Hold on and stick with me. I got this thought. It's coming out. So I take that thing that we're talking about right now and I go internally and I think about myself because I have the same thing. I think I'm a piece of shit. But in reality, on the outside, I'm really this really nice person. Right? But I think I'm a piece of shit. So it's like the real me that people see, that, you know, Craig's nice, he's kind, he's all these different things. That's actually who I am. So that's what I'm saying is like society is actually really nice and sweet and kind and beautiful and has a great heart. But we think we're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So we have this narrative. And I'm not just talking about like the news media and stuff like that. Yes, that's a massive contributor to it at this current time period in our lives. But this dynamic's been around for a really long time, long before print media, long before the news, right? The idea that we're actually pieces of shit, meaning on the big scale of society, that's kind of what we think, right? I mean, we're literally displaying that right now. We think that the world is such a terrible place and there's such shittiness in it. And yes, we can see the bright side, and yes, we can focus on this other stuff. But we also acknowledge that there's this other side that's a shitty, fucking terrible world to each other. And we think we're a part of that world. But then reality is we're super nice. We help each other out. You know, we'll bend over backwards sometimes to help a stranger. And it's like those two things don't line up, which means we really need to take, because I think about it once again in regards to myself. I had that narrative in regards to myself where I felt like I was a good person, but it was so hard for me to really believe that. I thought I was actually a terrible person and that I was just a worthless piece of shit. So that disconnect inside of me, I had to really look at that. And I had to look at what caused that. And I had to look at why that's there. And I had to get really uncomfortable in the process of doing that in order to really recognize why I believe that, when in truth, I'm a really nice, beautiful person. I think that's the reality of what this, like, culture, society, the world at large has to do. We really have to take an honest look at what has made us who we are. And the idea that, like, I love the idea that slavery isn't a factor anymore. Right? You mean a few hundred years of rape, pillage, and plundering? That's not going to leave some fucking baggage for us to deal with? No, because it ended like 200 years ago, so it's not that big of a deal. Really? That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's one example of something that we have to be real about and really take a look at and own, rather than try to pretend like it's not a thing. I think that's probably, I'm not saying just slavery. I'm talking about that dynamic of the unwillingness to look at yourself is probably why culture and society is probably why we're in the mess that we're in. And yeah, all this other surface level stuff of money, greed, and all this other stuff that we distract ourselves with, that's all those are. Those are just distractions, right? Because money is not the root of all evil. It's what money is used for. It's how much money is used and manipulated and abused. And it's all this other stuff that we're unwilling to look at. It's not money's fault. It's the people behind the money and their need to control and all of these other really sick, disgusting things that they're unwilling to look at. That's what the problem is. So then we have something that, like, in some way, Joe Rogan is trying to do that, right? He's trying to look at the fucked up things that are going on in this world. And, like, let's really look at these things. Let's really honestly look at these things. That's what he's kind of doing. And I think that's what we all need to do. And what I choose to look at, meaning how I choose to, like, look into society and see its dark pieces, whatever the avenue is for me to do that, great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be your avenue, right? When I do shadow work for myself, I go to my shadows. I go the path to those places that feels the safest for me. And that's what everybody needs the space to do. Like, if the path into the shadow and into the dark is the one that you feel the safest, I don't want to close that off for somebody because I disagree with what they're looking at. Right? There's people that think we don't need to really look at slavery and just forget about it and move on. Right? I disagree with them, but my encouragement is, we'll start looking in the shadows somewhere. If you don't want to look at this corner, just go look at a corner, right? Yeah. Start to look at something that you think is fucked up. And then go explore that and figure out why it is the way that it is. And maybe it's a lie. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not factual. Maybe it's 100% true and you just don't want to deal with it, right? It's the same thing of all this internal stuff that I've dealt with. Where it's like, I had to go really look at those things and be like, is that true? Yeah. Turns out that one's true. Turns out you actually did some fucked up things and hurt some people. Okay. Okay, that means I got to sit with those things. Like, if I want my world to be a beautiful, beautiful place and I want to be a beautiful part of my world, then I got to look internally and see what's dark inside of me. Otherwise, I'm going to be bringing that darkness into this beautiful part of the world. And it's not to say that we don't need light in darkness and that we don't need darkness in light. But I'm not bringing the darkness into the light and into the world. I'm carrying it with me in there. So, like, the world doesn't get to see my darkness. What they do is they see me. And I'm hiding all that darkness. That's what the world and society is doing. We're trying to hide our darkness. Back to what I was saying about social media and how they try to censor all of this stuff. They're trying to hide our darkness, but then they put it up in front of us and be like, look at this. You need to feel shame about this. And it's like, motherfuckers, just let me look at my darkness without judgment. How I choose to do it and how I choose to look at it. That's the path to my darkness that felt the safest at the time. And if that's different than yours, then that's different than yours. So I think that's the solution, right? Canceling people, no. Turns out that didn't work. We tried it. I thought we tried it with witches long ago. Turns out there was a story where we tried canceling some guy that was talking about God, so we threw him up on a cross. Like, obviously canceling doesn't work. Right? We've tried it. It doesn't solve anything. All it does is inflict more pain. So it's like, let's just all pause and take a look at our shadow. Go inside and see what you find for yourself. Because my perspective, the more, we'll just say, shadow work that I've done, right? It has shifted my perspective of the world. So more work internally, then I see the effects externally. So if we want to change, because remember, the world is actually full of beautiful people doing beautiful things. We just all think that it's dark, but it's really not. We just think that it is, just as I think that I'm a bad person when really I'm not. So if we want to stop thinking that the world is a dark place full of terrible things and evil people, if we want to stop that, then we have to look inside. Because the more I've looked inside and dealt with my shadow, the more my view about the world has changed. And it hasn't changed negatively. It's changed better, right? I want to go talk to our neighbors over there with their Trump flags and their Black American flag, and I want to go talk to them. Whereas before, I'd be like, fuck that. We got to get out of this neighborhood. These goddamn idiots. It's fucking idiot. You know, that's my narrative before, because I'm seeing the darkness, because I think that way. I know those people are good. I know that those people would give us the shirt off their back. I know that, like, intrinsically, even though we've never even met them. I've seen their kids, though, right? Evil, horrible people don't have beautiful little kids riding around on bikes and playing in the summertime and running through sprinklers, right? They're just regular people. Well, baby, you got to talk. Like, quite literally, I don't know if we've ever done a full episode of Nothing But Craig ranting.
Yeah, I think we just did that. I don't.
You're like, everybody's like, that's last week's episode, Craig. I'm not going to minimize it. Like you said, I got some shit on my chest.
Yeah.
And I feel much better now.
Good.
Yeah, I feel much better now. And I think there's validity to what I just said.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem, is I think that we aren't willing to look at the cultural, societal, dark things, right? Because they're hard. Like, they're really hard to look at. Shadow work is not for the meek, right? You don't throw your baby into shadow work, right? It's hard work, because you have to look at ugly things. And you have to look at things that you do not want to look at. And it's like we pretending that history isn't a thing. Like, if we just wanted to forget the Holocaust, right? You can't. But there's a lot of people that just want to forget terrible things that have happened. But instead, let's go look at them. Let's go think about them. Let's go sit with them. Let's go have compassion. I find darkness inside of me, and I want it out, because it's disgusting and it makes me feel sick. But I can't remove a piece of me, and I can't remove something that made me, right? My experiences, my trauma, these have all shaped and molded who I am. So because I can't physically pull that piece out of me, that means I have to figure out a way to live with it. Like, what do you do when you got somebody that you don't want to live with? You got to figure it out. Sometimes you fight with them. I'm thinking now of, like, back in the day when I used to work at the jail. Sometimes you'd put two guys into a cell. They did not want to be there together. It was obvious, right? And sometimes they'd fight. Sometimes they'd get moved. I mean, there's all these different things that sometimes would happen. But sometimes they'd have to literally just sit there and figure it out. Two grown-ass men in, like, I don't even remember how, like, 4x10 cell or something. It was bigger than that, maybe 6x10. That's what you have to do in shadow work. Go down there and find the things that you don't want to deal with and live with them. You got to figure out a way to live with them, because you can't take out pieces of yourself. So you have to live with it, which means you have to get compassion. Like, eventually, if you can't have compassion for your dark pieces that you don't want to live with, I think they're going to get you, right? I think you have to have compassion for them, at least to the extent that you feel what it may have been like for them to go through those experiences, or what it may be like now. Like, you got to have compassion for your dark side and your shadow, because you have to live with it. Otherwise, you're ignoring it like you've always have. And then we're in the place that we're at with culture and the world, where we all think we're terrible pieces of shit and we can't trust our neighbors, when in reality, we're actually really sweet, kind people. And I believe that you could take us, you and me, Steph, and you could drop us damn near anywhere in the world. There might be a few exceptions, but I don't really think so. I think even if you were to drop us into North Korea, I mean, with the exception of, like, being transported into some sort of, like, military base or something like that. But, like, if you just drop us suddenly in small town North Korea, I think initially, right, eventually people would learn that there's these two Americans, and it would be a big deal, whatever. First off, how did they teleport there? But I'm just talking about in the immediate, I think that people would come over and give us a blanket if it was cold or raining, right? They'd offer us shelter. Do you need a drink? Think about that movie, Lone Survivor. Not the movie, the actual event, Lone Survivor. Marcus Luttrell, right?
Yeah.
where there were a tribe of people that kept him safe, right, from the enemy. There's just example over and over and over again that's coming to my mind of like when people help people. And I think that's inherently who we are as people, you know. Okay. Do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you for attending this TED Talk.
Right?
Of Craig ranting for an hour. It was good stuff, though.
It's good.
Thanks for hanging in there with me, babe.
I'm glad you were able to express yourself.
Boy, I hope so.
Yeah?
I don't know what's going on. Well, obviously we know what's going on.
Yeah. How you feeling?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired. I feel a little bit of energy as well. I'm kind of energized. Yeah. Earlier, Stephanie referenced me feeling silenced in a way. And I've had awareness lately that the vast majority of my life, I haven't really felt safe to speak. And every time that I would speak, or oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes I would preface it with a bunch of things to make sure that what I was saying was acceptable and that you wouldn't judge me or hate me for that. And I've just realized how much I have done that, and in so many different ways that I've done that over the course of my life. And I've done that on this podcast plenty, where I have either done the exact thing, given a whole bunch of prefaces or excuses after saying something, because I want the person that's out there listening to still like us and still listen and still come back week after week. But it's not accurate. And it's not truth. It's trying to entertain the person that's out there listening instead of just showing up. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to show up and share. And a lot of this repression inside is, all of this stuff some of this stuff that I just got done talking about is stuff that I've been wanting to talk about on the podcast for a long time. But I have it in my head that somehow our listeners are liberal hippies that reside in San Francisco. And if I say, fuck Joe Biden, will immediately stop listening to our podcast. How silly is that? Because it's the simplest thing of what I've said, right? If what you hear on this podcast doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to listen to it. And you're right. And that's totally okay. And if it does resonate, then you're going to keep listening. That's not up to me. But I do have the ability to control what I say and how I show up. And because I have felt my whole life like my voice didn't matter, I'm going to be practicing a lot of actually using my voice, because I need a lot of practice doing it. So fuck Joe Biden. I think he's a terrible president. And I'm really upset that he's in office, because I think he's doing next to no good. Because truthfully, I don't think he's cognitive enough to be president. So he's probably not doing much, which means a bunch of other people who were not elected to be the president are actually doing the job. And that's frustrating. And I don't like that. So I didn't vote for him. Did we? I don't remember if we voted for him or not.
Did you vote for Trump?
I don't think so. No, I didn't vote for Trump. Wasn't there some other option? I didn't vote for Trump, Stephanie. Even if I did, it's not a big deal.
Right?
Obviously, he lost, right? So
I just was like, I now am questioning my reality and what I know to be true. But I'm like, all right, you're getting some stuff off your chest. Here you go. Being here listening to you is really And now I'm like, I'm confused. Now I don't know what's happening. Are you insinuating you voted for Trump? You should have voted for Trump. I'm like, what's happening? Now I got a problem. Now we gotta talk. now we're about to have a conversation.
Now
So
we
I
got
need to.
another hour of Stephanie ranting.
It's not Stephanie ranting. It's like Stephanie's gonna figure some shit out. No, it's like I voted.
If there's two options next time,
yes,
and the options are Donald Trump or Joe Biden, which there's a chance that might be the options, right? I think it's very slim. I don't think old Joe's going to hang in there for another 2 years. But if there are those two options again in 2024, I just won't vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to go off on the big rants of.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because that's not really important to me.
I was like, Trump lost the first time too, but
right.
He was in office.
This thing that we're ranting about
yeah,
is the surface level problem.
I know.
It's the distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a protector keeping us from looking at the shadow. That's all.
Yeah.
So politics turns out not that big of a deal, not that important. We're told that it is, and we believe that it is, because that's the narrative, and it has been. But it turns out it's pretty fucked up in the version that it is today. So all they're doing is perpetuating the shit show that is society, because they are unwilling to look at, like, can we even entertain potentially the possibility that the Constitution isn't the end-all be-all thing? Can we maybe look at that like, they wrote that during a time period where there was some really fucked up shit going on that probably shaped who those people were and how they thought, that may have even shaped the way with which they formed this document. Maybe we should take a look at it. But we won't even entertain that. And the people that do entertain that, well, I think we know what we do with people that talk, outside of the norm. Right? Those people are canceled. Those people are made to be crazy. Those people are killed. That legitimately happens all the time, where suddenly this person causes problems and now they're gone. Problem solved, right? The amount of shadow work that society has to do is pretty deep.
Yeah.
It's pretty deep. So how do we do that? How do we do the societal shadow work that needs to take place?
It's up to each individual.
Bam. You nailed it. It's up to us. We have to do our own shadow work in order to accomplish the massive goal, because there's 7 billion people on this planet. That means that there's 7 billion shadows, which now makes sense why the amount of shadow work that society and the world needs to do is so grand and so big, because we all have a lot. We all got a little piece of that. But if we all do our own little piece of shadow work, then suddenly the world becomes a less scary place.
That is very true.
And if the world is a less scary place, we'll actually start thinking about it as a less scary place. And the next thing you know, all these beautiful people that would really give you the shirt off of their back, you actually get to see those people.
Yeah.
Because they'll show up that way. And it'll feel safe. And then we really will have John Krasinski's Good News Network.
Right.
Where all we see is stories of beautiful things. And we stop hearing about all the terrible things that are happening, not because they stopped telling us about them, but because they actually have stopped.
I like this.
Can you even imagine?
I can imagine.
Imagine if we didn't hear about school shootings anymore, not because they just stopped reporting them, but because they stopped happening.
Yeah.
That's a very real possibility.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
If we all just somehow managed to look at the shadow, and we could look at the shadow of that topic. What led to that? How did we get to a point in this country and in this culture where that's a thing that fucking happens?
Right.
Not a thing that happens on a regular basis. Just something that actually fucking happens? That's bananas.
Right.
So we have to look at the shadow. Well, how did this thing happen? Well, I'm going to have a way that it happened and you're going to have a way that it happened. I can accept that my way isn't all right, just as I can accept that your way isn't all wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Because in order for me to be right, that doesn't mean that you have to be wrong. Turns out we can both be a little bit right and we can both be a little bit wrong. That's a big thing that we could all just agree upon. I think that would help.
I think it would too.
Those are kind of the initiatives that should be on the ballot.
Right.
Can we all make this societal agreement that we all do a little bit of good sometimes and we all do a little bit of bad sometimes? And we're all doing the best that we can. Can we all agree to that? Check. Yes. Okay. Bill number 1598 was passed this week. Turns out we all agree that we got a little bit of good and a little bit of bad in us. So you're all off the hook. If you're feeling guilty about being a little bit of bad, that's okay. Your neighbor's got your back. So much potential.
Right.
Well, we might be diving into shadow work.
I was like, what do you mean we might be? We've been...
Stephanie and I had
Deep.
another epiphany the other day, epiphanies, about another very significant thing that took place as soon as we got married. So a couple of episodes ago, we had this awareness that I'm not going to. she's like
over here
kicking
like,
me under the fucking table. You're not going to say what it was, motherfucker.
Excuse you.
That's not the point.
Okay.
The point is, actually, I don't know what the point is. I lost track of it. Other than to say that, why was I bringing that up?
I thought you were going to out me, so I don't know. I was like, hold up. This is not going on the end of this episode.
We just have awareness of significance to when we were married, immediately things changing and happening. Why did I bring that up, though? Okay. This might be a good time to wrap this episode until I find something else to go off of.
Stay tuned.
Do you have something else that you want to throw up in the air? Is there something that's bothering you that you'd like Craig's hot take on?
No.
No?
Not right now. I'm just going to...
Okay, well, let's hope that next week Joe Rogan is still around, because if he gets canceled, we're all in trouble.
Right.
I think we really are in some ways. I think it feels... See, this is the other thing. It feels like... Here we go.
Oh.
We thought we were almost done. Unfortunately not, folks. It feels like the country is at a tipping point.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Does it feel like there's just one more thing and then that's going to be the thing that breaks us? That like this country is on the edge of civil war and despair and it's going to crumble and implode on itself?
Okay. Let's put a lot of positive energy out there. Like,
hold on, I'm asking if doesn't it feel that way?
Can it feel that way? Yes. And I'm saying no.
I have to highlight my point.
Okay.
You have to read your script better. I'm teasing. That was a joke.
It's very funny.
So what I'm trying to say is it seems like it is on the edge of collapse, right? But it's not. We just think that we're pieces of shit, but we're actually not. So the world seems like it's crumbling, but it's actually not. I realized that with all the traveling that I did, especially during Corona.
Right.
You watch the news and it's mayhem out there. I even traveled during the riots.
To the riot locations.
Right.
I was scared.
During that time period when our country was like on fire and there was rioting, there was massive rioting taking place in Portland. I flew to Portland. I was there for like 3 days. Saw nothing. No riots. I walked around. Went to Whole Foods. Everything was fine. Right? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That blew my mind.
Well, that's the thing that I'm saying is we think that the world is crumbling, but the reality is it's not. Yeah. Just as we think we're terrible people, the reality is we're not. So we have to remember that thing.
Yeah.
So yes, if Joe Rogan gets canceled, it feels like sometimes that might be the straw that broke the camel's back, because he has such a dedicated following of real fanatical fucking weirdos. The type of people that listen to Joe Rogan is vast, right? He's got a big spectrum of people that listen to him, and there's a faction of them that are fucking weirdos. And if he gets canceled, we're all in trouble. But it feels like that. And the reality is it's not.
Yeah.
We have to remember that these fears that we have are not true. And the simplest way to remember that is to think about yourself, right? You might think you're a piece of shit and a terrible person, and you very well might be. But the truth be told is you're actually a good person. And you would. Even, I saw some of the most, I saw murderers helping other people. Right? So even the worst person that we could all possibly imagine, that individual person still not just has the capacity to, but will most likely lend a hand if need be. So I think it's inherent in human nature. You could take a serial killer, and on the right day and the right time, he still has that part inside of him that will almost subconsciously put his hand out to help the person up. And yes, we can all go into the fear and say there is that 1% of psychotic fucking people that are just evil out there. I'll give you that. So there are that faction of people that are just maniacal fucking bastards that are designed to kill people and get joy from it. But they're the anomaly. They're not the norm. And out of 7 billion people, there's probably, I don't know, maybe 700 of those people, which means not that many. The rest of us are good people. So I bet you there has been countless times throughout history where everybody thought this is the end of the world. Right? And it's actually happened. That's a whole nother thing that Joe Rogan has given us the gift of, is asteroids are coming and we're all fucking dead, but that's okay. I think throughout history and time, we've always thought that this is the end of civilization. And it might be the end of you. But guess what? Civilization goes on. And we all die. I just don't want to die soon. And while I'm here, I would like this place to be a lot happier and better, because I think it's a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
And I like being in it. Hence, I have to do my own shadow work.
Luckily you are.
Right? And I have a lot. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of shadow in this guy. Lots of light, though. For as much shadow as I have, I've got just as much light. And that's the same with all of us. Would you agree?
I have similar and opposing views.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to share them?
No, I think we get to just leave it with how you felt. You don't need any.
Okay.
Well, it's we've also been it's also a good time to end.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It
so
is.
It's not like we're 20 minutes in and I'm I don't really want to give you my side. Let's just end it.
You're very kind. You're it's also a good time to push stop. So let's do that. Thank you for listening. The contest to win this banner, tapestry behind us, that is going on throughout the month of February. And at the end of February, we're going to announce the winner. So if you would like to enter the chance to win this tapestry, and if you're only listening, you can go to Instagram and find it all. And if you want to enter, that's where you go, is Instagram. And you'll see at the very top in the highlighted posts, there's one that says giveaway, and it's got a picture of that tapestry. So that's how you go and click there and then follow those posts and go to the actual post on the wall and enter to win the tapestry, because we're giving one away every month this year. So thank you for listening, everybody. Tune in next week. Maybe it'll be your turn, Steph.
I'll be ranting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Peace out. Everybody's good. Give your neighbor your shirts.